Tonight, what we're going to be looking at is the discussion about community notes and fact-checking. There is a debate regarding it that is very popular and going on. It's become a very much partisan issue as well. So I did a little bit of research. We're going to listen to a video or two, one from Mark Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan. Take a look at it, listen to the claims, listen to his points, and discuss it.
I was really worried from the beginning about basically becoming this sort of decider of what is true in the world, right? That's like kind of a crazy position to be in for billions of people using your service. And so we tried to put in place a system that would deal with it. And early on tried to basically make it so that it was really limited. We're like, all right, we're just going to have the system where there's these third-party fact checkers and they can check the worst of the worst stuff, right? So things that are very clear hoaxes, that there's it's not like we're not parsing speech about whether something is slightly true or slightly false, like Earth is flat, things like that, right? So that was sort of the original intent. We put in place the system and it just sort of veered from there. I think to some degree, it's because some of the people whose job is to do fact checking, a lot of their industry is focused on political fact check.
So there we go. That's one of the primary issues and debate points of why political fact checking, like the authorities on it, are bad. Is they are partisan, right? They aren't bipartisan. Ooh. They're biased people.
That's very bad because they get to say what's true or not coming out of someone's mouth.
Exactly. And it's a powerful position, right?
Yeah.
And it's a reasonable one to be put out there into the public to be worried about. I mean, we should still propagate the idea that you should be checking what is being fact checked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice to trust it. I get it. But one of the things that has become prominent, especially in American culture recently, is the idea that you can't trust authority figures. And that includes in academia or those, let's say, doctors who are talking about topics regarding public health, because it becomes so politicized.
Vaccines.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a problem, right? Because one of the things is misinformation, disinformation, misleading content. It affects so much. It affects the public health. It affects politics, everything. Absolutely everything. It's our day-to-day life. It affects what we talk about, right?
And it could affect your ability to survive. Like the vaccines don't really work unless everyone gets them. Polio, right. All of that. And when these people come out with these outlandish claims and that causes people not to get vaccinated, people die. My aunt died of COVID because she did not believe, she thought the vaccines were harmful, and she wound up passing away from COVID.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I mean, right there, that shows you that her believing in these people that said vaccines were bad, like it could cause someone to die.
Absolutely.
And it lowers of a nation like America. It lowers basically the IQ of a nation. It makes us as a whole less informed and less intelligent, and less able to make intelligent decisions. Like somebody can put a picture around something and say some words underneath it, and now it's a fact.
Right.
That's like all it takes.
Right. And so in order to combat that, they are talking about doing these community notes. And an example of that was what was formerly known as Birdwatch on X. X first deployed this concept of community notes, and they're going to get into a little bit, and he's going to discuss it. But yeah, it's an issue. It's a big problem. Hopefully one we can solve.
So they just kind of veered in that direction. And we kept on trying to basically get it to be what we had originally intended, which is just, it's not, the point isn't to like judge people's opinions. It's to provide this layer to kind of help fact check some of the stuff that seems the most extreme, but it just, it was just never accepted by people broadly. I think people just felt like the fact checkers were too biased. Not necessarily even so much in what they ruled, although sometimes I think people would disagree with that. A lot of the time, it was just what types of things they chose to even go and fact check in the first place. So I kind of think, like, after having gone through that whole exercise,
that is a reasonable point, right? If they are picking one type of thing to fact check, that is an issue because it does demonstrate partisan. Now, in the research that I found, I didn't get to the article that I wanted to read today about it. I haven't found necessarily anything that demonstrates it, but then again, they haven't looked at it from what I could find. So it's a claim that may be legitimate. Another issue with fact checking is there is so much information, right?
Yeah.
Think about how much information is put up on the web, just how much I put up on the web, right? Since I started doing this. Yeah, just one person is putting out there. Now, in order to fact check all the information that is being distributed a day, how many people you would need, how many resources it would take in order to do that. It would be absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
We need AI. We need to make an AI-powered fact checker.
Yeah.
That would be that way. Because there's always going to be people that would even say the fact, like if it was
There's discussion on it. There is. They're working on it. Yeah.
But people will say, oh, it's a biased AI. They put information in there to make it so this is true and that's not true. There's going to be those people.
Yeah. And so one of the issues being with all that mass information came up with this community notes, because the community notes is outsourcing the ability to fact check to the people that are consuming it. So basically, like, you and me are reviewing a post. We become, as a people that are consuming it, our own fact checkers. So it's the audience doing it. Now, first, I will admit, I was very much against this idea. Very much against it. But upon further research, I am pleasantly surprised that it is effective, and I admit my initial bias was wrong. There are some very good positives to this, including positives that beat fact-checking. For example, trustworthiness. People consider that community notes are more trustworthy because, and this makes sense, it's a peer, right? It's not an authority figure telling you. It's you and me, right? We're equals, we're peers, the community has told us. So it kind of takes out that authority idea.
Oh, like trying to tell us this is what the fact is. And
right.
You need to understand that and accept it.
Exactly. And that works better on different groups of people because from what the research shows, those on the right tend to have a little bit more of an anti-authority a bit. Just a little bit.
That's the whole thing about republicanism.
Well, hey, dude, I got that.
Littler government, right?
I got it just naturally. Yeah. I can blame my dad.
I think we all do.
Dad, sorry, but it's true.
Well, everybody, I think, to an extent, is anti-authoritarianism.
Absolutely.
Because, like, who wants to be told what to do and what's right and what's wrong and what's true and what's not? It's like,
who wants to follow the rules?
I don't. I want to break them right now. Like, the urge to get nude at this moment is overpowering.
That's on the OnlyFans channel, right?
Oh, hey.
There we go. All right. We'll get back to it. Just one more note. That issue on the amount, they refer to it as scalability. If anybody wants to look that up and do any research on it, just put in scalability when it comes to fact checking and community notes.
It I don't know, it's something out of like 1984, one of these books where it's just like it really is a slippery slope, and it just got to a point where it's just, okay, this is destroying so much trust, especially in the United States, to have this program, and I guess it was probably about a few years that I really started coming to the conclusion that we were going to need to change something about that. COVID was the other big one, where that was also very tricky because, you know, at the beginning it was, you know, it's like a legitimate public health crisis, you know, in the beginning, and it's you know, even people who are like the most ardent First Amendment, you know, defenders, the Supreme Court has this clear precedent that's like, all right, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There are times when if there's an emergency, your ability to speak can temporarily be curtailed in order to get an emergency under control. So I was sympathetic to that at the beginning of COVID. It seemed like, okay, you have this virus. It seems like it's killing a lot of people. I don't know, like we didn't know at the time how dangerous it was going to be. So at the beginning, it kind of seemed like, okay, we should give a little bit of deference to the government and the health authorities on how we should play this. But when it went from, you know, 2 weeks to flatten the curve to, you know, and like in the beginning, it was like, okay, there aren't enough masks. Masks aren't that important. To then it's like, oh no, you have to wear a mask. And, you know, like everything was shifting around. It just became very difficult to kind of follow. And this really hit the most extreme, I'd say, during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And now I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us super hard to take down things that were honestly were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said,
it's so hard to find that balance, you know? Like so hard to find that balance of like what information to push and what information not to push. There was definitely a amount of censorship done on opposing opinions, on reasonable opposing opinions, right? Like, for example, those from doctors suggesting other forms of treatments and things like that, like things that they are not saying, you know, don't do this, but just saying, hey, there might be an issue here. There might be an issue here. Here's a method to possibly avert, you know, X from happening or Y from happening. And shutting that down completely in some ways that they did, it alienates people further and it pushes people to that more extreme side. You know, it has that like backfire effect.
Because now they're telling us, you know, they're doing that exactly what we talked about. Yeah. But, and it's so hard, like you're saying, with the internet, because people are going to, instead of like having a little warning label on a vaccine, okay, it's a vaccine, we're pushing it out fast. There might be some hiccups here and there. There might be people, you know, we're just trying to save lives. But this, as you know, there might be like a 0.01%, it's bad. But people are going to look at that and say, oh, vaccines are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're going to spread that information. Like just, you know, cherry pick, clip things out, like vaccines are. And that's where it gets to where like, well, what do you censor about it? It's true.
Right.
But it's not the way you are presenting it to be true.
There's no context.
Yes.
And I will say this about community notes and some of the research that I did is one of the key points when it came to the effectiveness of identifying misleading content or false news was not only with the label, but a label with context. Having that context or an actual explanation rather than just an identification made a huge difference. It made a huge difference. And that is one of the things that Community Notes brings to the table is it does bring context because people will write about it, right? They'll give context. I've said a lot of good things about Community Notes. I do want to say one thing about fact checking then is there is a study that came out called The Global Effectiveness of Fact Checking, Evidence from Simultaneous Experiments in Argentina, Nigeria, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Now, initially someone listening to this or seeing this, my first critique would be, okay, well, you're talking about the US, and this does not include the US as part of the sample population. I get it. The UK, though, is a good sample to pull from when it comes to like Western society, especially when you see the current social movements that are trending within them. It's similar to ours. A lot of the same social issues are coming up. So that is my point to be made on that. But I get it. I get it. A very interesting thing that they found is that, and I quote, "We conducted simultaneous experiments in 4 countries to investigate the extent to which fact-checking can reduce false beliefs. Fact checks reduced false beliefs in all countries, with most effects detectable more than 2 weeks later and with surprisingly little variation by country. Our evidence underscores that fact-checking can serve as a pivotal tool in the fight against misinformation." So, all the evidence shows that it does have a positive effect. The one most important positive effect that is noted here that they studied was that it had a long-term effect. In other words, its effect was durable. So when they went and checked with the participants again, they still retained that belief of what was true, right? It didn't lead to a backfire effect. So just wanted to note that and throw that in there.
Yeah, and if you have more explanation behind why something is true or false, then that will solidify your belief in whether it is or not, instead of just having a statement and now that can be eroded or taken away by some other statement.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And
Literally,
I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that. I mean, that is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that
it was
that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. I think it was I wasn't involved in those conversations directly, but I think it was.
How difficult is that to not be involved in those conversations directly? That's got to be strange too, right? Because you're running the company, but there's clearly you're moderating at scale that's beyond the imagination. The number of human beings you're moderating is fucking insane. Like, what is? Well, what's a Facebook? How many people use it on a daily basis? Forget about how many overall. Like, how many people use it regularly?
It's 3.2 billion people use one of our services every day.
Isn't that crazy?
That's half the world's population.
Right? It is absolutely crazy. Think about how much just data and information processing that is. It's crazy.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy.
That guy is so rich.
He is making money.
It's wild.
More than a third of the planet. That's so crazy.
Yeah, and it's
almost half of Earth.
Well, on a monthly basis, it is probably half. Of it. But
so I want to say that though, there's a lot of like hypercritical people that are conspiracy theorists and think that everybody's a part of some cabal to control them. I want you to understand that whether it's YouTube or all these, whatever place that you think is doing something that's awful, it's good that you speak, because this is how things get changed, and this is how people find out that people are upset about content moderation and censorship. But moderating at scale is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
What we were talking the other day.
Right. That's what we talked about.
Yeah. Like,
about the number of.
Yeah. It's so much. It's so much.
Videos that
we're going to have to figure out some way to implement with the AI, and that reading isn't that stack of papers. Didn't get to it.
Go up every hour on YouTube, and it's bananas. It's bananas. That's like to try to get a human being that is reasonable, logical, and objective that's going to analyze every video. It's virtually impossible. It's not possible. So you got to use a bunch of tools. You're going to get a bunch of things wrong, and you have also people.
Didn't we just say that? Why the hell aren't we getting the views that Rogan is?
I know, right?
We're better. We're at least better looking, right?
Hey, yeah.
There we go. That's so.
Especially than Zuckerberg. That guy looks like I don't even know.
Dude, his eyes, I don't know what it is about the facial structure, but it freaks me out.
It's just bad.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Reporting things, and how much is that going to affect things? You could have mass reporting because you have bad actors. You have some corporation that decides we're going to attack this video because it's bad for us, get it taken down.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on. I want to put that in people's heads before we go on. Like, understand the kind of numbers that we're talking about here. Now understand you have the pandemic, and then you have the administration that's doing something where I think they crossed the line, where it gets really weird, where they're saying what you were saying. They were trying to get you to take down vaccine side effects, which is just crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean,
if that's all true and the government was getting involved in that, like in private companies, just that message, right? Him saying that, coming out alone, is going to affect public perception so much, right?
Because that's saying, like, if I was one of those people that thought thing, that's saying that there is bad things,
right?
There is bad. The government doesn't want us to know.
It's justifying that belief. It's strengthening that. It's reaffirming it.
Instead of being like, no, the government wants to save lives and not have you do that.
Right.
But it's talk about the backfire.
Yeah. And it is. It sucks. It's horrible. They would have gotten more out of it. Gosh, this is a big claim, but possibly gotten more out of it in like the long-term effect of people actually continuing to believe in authority of not doing that,
Yes.
I mean, you would think that the people who are in control of these large social media companies, I mean, they're obviously people with some ethics, and they are aware of the effect of media on people, whether they're using it to their advantage to make that money or not. They do have public health concerns, I think, at heart.
Yeah, because it's obviously they just don't want people to take it, like we said, out of context and just like, oh, okay, it's bad, I'm not going to do it.
Well, and if everybody dies, you're not going to be making that money, man.
No way. And then, the vaccine producers, now they're going like, oh, that was the pharmaceutical that made the vaccine.
Right.
They were paid by the government. They paid the government to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody actually died of vaccines and not COVID.
Oh, gosh, it's a mess.
Like you're saying, I mean, it's so complicated, this system, that I could spend every minute of all of my time doing this and not actually focused on building any of the things that we're trying to do. AI, glasses, like the future of social media, all that stuff. So, when I get involved in this stuff, but in general, we have a policy team. There are people I trust. The people are kind of working.
Yeah, it's weird. And it seems like this bone right here, the spatial structure, like it's just too far over, like to the outside, and it creates this large gap between like his nasal cavity and like the bottom of his eye.
What?
I know. I don't know why those things bother me. It's just like having a mic in front of my face. It drives me crazy. Like it just seems like it's in the way. I don't know. Anyway,
on this on a day-to-day basis, and the interactions that
you see it, like it even pokes out a little bit, and see how high that bone is right there, like on the outside right here, like it's up way too high. Yeah, it's not right.
Just referring to, I mean, a lot of this is documented. I mean, because Jim Jordan and the House had this whole investigation and committee into the kind of government censorship around stuff like this, and we produced all these documents, and it's all in the public domain. I mean, basically, these people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are true. And then at some point, I guess I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know, then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating and coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow. Yeah. It's just a massive overstepping.
Yeah,
and,
well, I
and
mean,
also,
I think it'll...
you weren't killing people. This is the thing about all of this. It's like they suppressed so much information about things that people
like, because there are people that are going to watch that satire he's talking about with Leonardo DiCaprio and not get the vaccine because they don't understand that it's satire.
Right.
So, I mean,
at the same time, though, I mean, you have to be so careful with that. I mean, after the things that you and I have done and the things that, like I've published, and it's been flagged by Google Ads as being bad, even though I know it's absolutely nothing. It does concern me that, one, the algorithms that they're using, because obviously it's not a person flagging this stuff, right? It's an algorithm, and it's picking up on patterns of words. It's a problem because the algorithms can't identify what is satire yet.
That's like a machine identifying humor.
Mm-hmm. It's still having trouble with it. It will figure it out, like maybe once it can implement inflections and things like that into the processing. But because it's just, probably generating a text file and then analyzing it, you can't pick up on humor that way, right? Unless you have some type of audio that is involved with it, you're not going to hear the satire involved.
Yeah, like Bill Burr did a skit where he was talking about a guy, just going out and, meeting up with a woman and taking her to her apartment, and then she's like, "Oh no, don't do that. Oh, stop. You're so bad." And then she takes him to court about date rape. And then he's there in court and she's going, and the guy's reading it, he was like, she said, "No, stop. That's bad." He was like, "I didn't say it like that."
Right.
So it's, like you're saying, the inflection, the context.
It's so important.
Yes.
But the machines can't pick up on it.
They're machines.
Yeah. It will happen when they can, but still, it's too early.
We're going to have comedy robots.
It will happen. It will definitely happen.
People should be doing, regardless of whether or not you believe in the vaccine. Regardless, put that aside. Metabolic health is of the utmost importance in your everyday life, whether there's a pandemic or there's not. And there's a lot of things that you can do that can help you recover from illness. It prevents illnesses. It makes your body more robust and healthy. It strengthens your immune system. And they were suppressing all that information. And that's just crazy. You can't say you're one of the good guys if you're suppressing information that would help people recover from all kinds of diseases, not just COVID, the flu, common cold, all sorts of different things, high doses of vitamin C, D3 with K2 and magnesium. They were suppressing this stuff because they didn't want people to think that you could get away with not taking a vaccine, which is really crazy when you're talking about something that 99.07% of people survive. This is a crazy overstep, but scared the shit out of a lot of people. Red-pilled, as it were, a lot of people, because they realized, 1984 is like an instruction manual. It's like it shows you how things can go that way with wrong speak and with bizarre distortion of facts. And when it comes down to it, in today's day and age, the way people get information is through your platform, through X. This is how people are getting information. They're getting information from YouTube. They're getting information from
which is horrible.
Right?
Absolutely horrible. Going to social media
to
for
get facts.
Knowledge. One, it's called social media. I mean, what knowledge are you going to gather from that point? But I mean, YouTube is great for finding good information. I mean, it's great for bad information too, but I would say the amount of educational content is so valuable, so valuable. You can learn how to do anything,
Like literally anything.
anything. It's amazing.
Like,
Bunch of different sources now, and you can't censor that if it's real legitimate information because it's not ideologically convenient for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically the journey that I've been on, right? Started off very pro free speech, free expression. And then over the last 10 years, there have been these two big episodes. It was the Trump election and the aftermath, where I feel like in retrospect, I deferred too much to the kind of critique of the media on what we should do. And since then, I think generally trust in media has fallen off a cliff, right? So I don't think I'm alone in that journey. I think that's basically the experience that a lot of people have had is, okay, it's the stuff that's being written about is not kind of all accurate. And even if the facts are right, it's kind of written from a slant a lot of the time.
Of course.
And then I
wonder if we can use AI. I hope this gets into it. That stack of papers over there. If we can use AI to detect AI generated content that is false news.
it should be able to immediately.
Yeah. I mean, it's people using AI to generate this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not AI doing it necessarily by choice. It's doing it because it's told to do it. But it has definitely become a tool because you can mass produce so much information.
And
False
like,
information.
yeah, false women that
Yeah.
are all of a sudden there's all these beautiful women. That one girl I think that I showed you, yeah, I think she's a AI.
I'm so sorry, bro.
It's very disappointing.
I'm so sorry. I told you. You can tell, like, at the joints and stuff like that, you can totally tell.
I'm not looking at the joints, man.
There's the government version of it, which is during COVID, which is okay. Like, it's like our government is telling us that we need to censor true things. It's like, this is a disaster. And it's, it's not just the US, right? I think a lot of people in the US focus on this as an American phenomenon, but
I think it's the Western world in general, just because we have had exposure to it for the longest, right? We've had the technology enter our lives for a longer period of time. And so we can observe a long-term effect of this new technology on our population when in comparison to other countries who have not had it, they have not necessarily had that experience and therefore the downturn of effects.
Yeah, they could probably watch social media and almost immediately, well, if they're not like enthralled with it, they could probably immediately detect lies or something that's wrong. Like they could just be like, oh.
Well, that or maybe just like the other effects, like the most recent movement with incels and things like that. Like there's this kind of social movement that due to this separation that people feel from other people, which may be induced by this use of social media, by this hyper connection. Ironically, we then have this disconnection from actual people in our real life. And yeah, maybe they just haven't had exposure enough. Hopefully we figure it out so then we can deliver it to them before it occurs to that population.
Yeah, the not having to use deductive reasoning constantly in your life makes your ability to deduce facts and information dramatically drop. Like if you can just click in a calculator, a math problem, and it just shows you, it doesn't let you realize how that math works.
The
that's
process.
why you have to use the freaking, you have to show your work. And if you can just click Google something that you want to know all the time, what is that? What is this? Then you don't take your deductive reasoning and say, okay, I know this is true and I know that's true, so this must be true, and get to the facts yourself. It's lots of times you have the answer inside your head if you knew how to deduce it. And nobody does that anymore.
Well, I would say inductive reasoning as well, right? Just because you're seeing everything at face value and accepting it. Whereas, like, inductively, like from a grounded theory perspective, you're observing all of these interactions, all this information, and then coming to a reasonable decision to form your reality. But if everything that you're taking in is a distorted reality from the media, your reality will be distorted.
I think that's why a lot of what's happening in politics and everything else is happening.
Because we're basing it off a distortion of reality.
Exactly. And we don't have the ability to deduce what, to a lot of people, is obviously ridiculous or a lie or any of that. It makes your IQ go down. If you lose the ability to deduce facts, your IQ literally goes down. That's basically what an IQ is, your ability to learn things. And deducing is you're learning, you're figuring out facts in your head. And if you don't have to do that, you Google something all the time. I'm not saying Google's bad. I'm just saying it's taken away. It's like, given calculators to students.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. It like takes away your ability to actually apply it if you chose to without it, like understanding the steps and processes. I get it.
I kind of think that the reaction to COVID probably caused a breakdown in trust in a lot of governments around the world, because 2024 was a big election year around the world, and there are all these countries, India, just like a ton of countries that had elections, and the incumbents basically lost every single one. So there is some sort of a global phenomenon where the whether it was because of inflation, because of the economic policies to deal with COVID, or just how the governments dealt with COVID, seems to have had this effect that's global, not just the US, but like a very broad decrease in trust, at least in that set of incumbents, and maybe in sort of these democratic institutions overall. So I think that what you're saying of, how do people get their information now? It's by sharing it online on social media. I think that that's just increasingly true.
And remember how I mentioned, I think it was last time, that one study I read where I think it was something like you're 8 times more likely, or just in general, you are more likely to share misinformation than you are to share true information, primarily because it's emotionally driven, right? For example, I want to piss you off because you don't believe the same thing, but I read a headline that I know will piss you off, proving my point. I'm going to share it with you.
No matter if it's true or false or fake.
No matter if it's true or not.
Yeah, because now the burden is on the person you shared it to prove it's true or false.
Yeah. And are they going to read it? Probably not, because it pisses them off.
And it's out there now.
Yeah.
My view at this point is like, all right, like we started off focused on free expression. We kind of had this pressure tested over the last period. I feel like I just have a much greater command now of what I think the policies should be. And like, this is how it's going to be going forward. And so I mean, at this point, I think a lot of people look at this as like a purely political thing. It's because they kind of look at the timing and they're like, hey, well, you're doing this right after the election. It's like, okay, I try not to change our content rules like right in the middle of an election either, right? It's like there's not like a great time to do this. It's
right. And you want to do it a year later.
Yeah, it's like there's no good time to do it. There's,
right.
And whatever time is going on, there's going to be, so. The good thing about doing it after the election is you get to take this kind of cultural pulse as like, okay, where are people right now, and how are people thinking about it? We try to have policies that reflect, mainstream discourse. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is something I've been thinking about for a while. I think that this is going to be pretty durable because at this point we've just been pressure tested on this stuff for like the last 8 to 10 years with like these huge institutions just pressuring us, and I feel like this is kind of the right place to be going forward.
What was it like when they were attacking you? Like, first of all, what was the premise? Like, what? All
right, let's check something else out. I would like to hear more about their AI detecting models. Let's see what he says right here.
Because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor...
It's true. Like, for example, what about TikTok not promoting my video on how to spot propaganda? I mean, isn't that ironic, though, at the same time? They wouldn't promote my video about how to detect propaganda.
You mean they wouldn't play it?
No, they would put it out there, but they wouldn't distribute it or promote it. So people would have to come to my page, right? And then click on it in order to view it. Not many people do that.
Oh, it's not just in the feed.
Also, I couldn't make it as an ad and push it out into the feed for more people to see.
Probably because the word propaganda is in it.
No. So I changed the description, removed all words propaganda in it, changed the title, re-uploaded it. It didn't make a difference. They said that they analyzed the text. So again, it made a transcription. But they looked at it, and basically I'd be manipulating behavior on a mass scale, which I would say in a positive way. But yeah, they wouldn't do it.
Wow, is it like we're some big manipulative? You're some big manipulative guy. You're gonna change all this shit, like.
Well, it is based on it's sociology. So I am talking about how to affect people on a large scale. But then again, everything that they produce that is media is affecting people on a large scale.
Yeah,
whether it's positive or not. See.
So you're actually like, they don't want somebody saying, "Hey, what?"
Yeah.
Anything that says bad about how we do stuff.
Right.
Okay, I gotcha.
Just 1% of posts. That's millions of people.
That's why I kept on doing a couple of videos about how bad TikTok was, by the way. I'm a little bit resentful at that. I got a long game when it comes to them.
And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X.
So here is what I don't understand. Why are we completely removing fact checkers? From all the data that I found, it only has a positive effect, right? The debate is, one, addressing the issue of scalability, which community notes definitely helps out with that. And then two, looking at the effectiveness in comparison to community notes that is dependent on the people perceiving it. So in other words, they found that those that lean moderate or to the left political put more faith in authority, fact-checking services. Those on the right perceived community notes as more trustworthy. Overall, both also found community notes as a very trustworthy source. So, why not employ a method where you have community notes providing context, which is what they found as highly effective, and then also a possible warning label if the community note doesn't do it, with an authoritative note as well from the fact checkers. That is what I don't get about this, is why are we completely doing away with one? Especially when we have more information on the effectiveness of fact checking because it's been around longer, right? Like we know for a fact that it is effective. There is a ton of information on this desk that proves it, and there's more out there on the net.
But they're just completely
That's what you
taking
just
it
said.
out.
They're replacing it. That's my issue with this. I also don't like how it has become such a partisan issue and how there are individuals that are in influencing positions that are making it political. I understand their critiques on how they perceive they may be doing it, and there may be something to it. I don't know. I haven't looked at these fact checkers and seen in comparison, if they're doing 20 stories identifying on the right and only identifying 10 on the left, I mean, there could be bias into how much, like what they are picking out of the sample population of information that's out there. But overall, as a whole, it has a positive effect.
Yes, because even if they're picking sample populations of facts to check, it's still checked factually.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so some of the right or some of the left's going to slip by more, but at least if the other side's slipping by more with unfactual things, at least the stuff you get on your side is factual.
Totally.
Wait. Yes. Okay.
No, totally. And, another thing with the community notes is there is a potential there for bad actors, right? People could manipulate that system because
totally.
it's a voting-based system where this individual suddenly becomes seen as an individual of integrity. We are going to perceive them as a source of good information. Well, the problem with community notes is they are not necessarily built up of experts. They're people, right?
Yes.
And what if that person generates an agenda?
Just by being the person that everyone comes to see what his opinion is, there's going to be like the community notes people that
exactly.
are big influencers.
It will be a community, yeah.
Yeah, and so now they're not a peer.
Another issue that I have with this is I did look into it on X, and there's no monetary gain in becoming, a contributor in that community. Now, some might say that that is a good thing. The only thing is, how long are you going to do it if you ain't getting some money out of it?
Well, I thought it
takes a work to produce good information. I mean, and it takes resources to produce good information. An individual who actually knows something or tries to find out is going to have to dedicate their time to identify if that is true or not.
Yes, but if somebody's paying them, now they have become someone who can be bought.
Right, but at the same time, if you can monetize integrity and promote that, then you can have someone, yes, you can have monetary intention behind your actions and still do good stuff. I understand the idea that you could be bought, but that can become your niche. I mean, you could also get into journalism. It can just be, you got to get something out of it. That's all I'm saying. You can't just get social clout from it. That's not enough. That don't pay the bills. That doesn't put any value on your time necessarily in order for you to continue doing it as well.
I just thought I thought the community notes were like, if somebody posts something, then you just write a comment about it.
Nope, it's more than that.
It's more like
I mean, that's part of it, but it generates a community.
So it's its own separate whole
kind of
thing.
Yeah. We could look into it a little bit more. Let's see if he gets into it.
Starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second,
and I haven't seen anyone, including myself, provide evidence for that. I really would like to know more about that.
About the US?
No, just regarding the fact checkers. If there is a study that actually demonstrates if they're biased or not. I'll find one. I will.
Simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions.
Want to hear something else that was blocked content-wise?
What's that?
You remember the Celine and I thing, the collaboration that I did with AI?
Oh, you were talking about that earlier?
Yeah. So anyway, my blog about that, I can't share it to Facebook
Why?
because apparently it is content that some might find offensive.
What did you talk about?
Nothing that I didn't talk about on this podcast. It was literally just that. Isn't that crazy?
What would be offensive about it?
Some people may perceive the idea that there is a collaboration between two people or AI creating an identity in itself as somehow offensive or making them uncomfortable. I don't know.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
And shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action.
I think that is good. I think that is a good move because the filters are not developed enough.
People wind up in Facebook jail like for ridiculous things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Some of my friends are always like complaining about it.
Yeah. I do think that there needs to be further development. We haven't got there yet. And there will be a time to employ it, but we aren't there yet. So I do think that that is a good move. I mean, it can obviously identify the extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it can't detect the nuances, like satire, like we talked about a little bit earlier.
The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts.
You could just stop looking at it. Just throwing that out there.
Apparently they can't.
Apparently not.
But
I did see that I don't know when they included this or not, but you can choose whether to see more of one type of content over the other.
Yeah. Do you like posts like this? Like yes or no? Yeah.
Yeah.
it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive.
Is there anything on Threads other than women with OnlyFans accounts?
I haven't tried to look for anything else, so I don't know. So I don't know.
It is crazy. It's crazy.
Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas.
Okay.
As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
Everybody's going to Texas. Everybody. If you got money, you're going to Texas.
What's in Texas? What's happening?
Well, the taxes.
Texas taxes?
Yeah, there's less taxes, right, in Texas, especially when it comes to like businesses. So they make more money.
I didn't know that. Why?
Yeah.
What?
How could you not know that? That's like one of the biggest political things out there.
I don't
Where
watch
have you
anything.
been?
I
I
don't
know,
watch
and that's a good
anything.
thing for this channel because you're a blank slate. I love it. But yes, it's a huge thing. Like Joe Rogan moved there. I mean, Tesla has their Starbase there. Zuckerberg's going to go hang out there now. I mean, it's a huge thing.
Texas is going to be like the new California?
God,
It sounds like it, dude.
I don't know how.
Texas is big.
It
too.
is big.
I thought it's a red state.
But anyway, it's about the money.
Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can...
One thing on that, I agree. They have a very different type of system when it comes to the idea of defamation. It's much different. You know, here you have to demonstrate with evidence that you have had like financial loss, you know, significant things be done to you. But there, the line is much more blurred.
I got my feelings hurt.
Yeah. A lot of it's just more of like opinion. You can't have opinion.
Order companies to quietly take
It's a dangerous thing.
things down.
Because you could censor a lot based on that, right? You have to watch what you say even more.
China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right.
Take it, Zuckerberg.
So, you got any closing thoughts, Zach, before I wrap it up?
My thought would be just before you Google something, see if you can figure out what the question is you're trying to answer yourself. And if you can deduce that answer before jumping straight to Google.
Dude, that's a big one. Cognitive effort.
Right?
Oof, man. So, I guess to synopsize everything that we talked about, there are very good things regarding community notes, and it definitely holds a place in detecting misleading information, completely false information. But the complete removal of a proven process of fact-checking rather than some form of a hybrid model doesn't make too much sense. Maybe it does from a monetary standpoint because you're not having to pay people to do it. And that might finally be the reason. That might be the reason. And I do understand the argument regarding the partisan issue with what stories they may be choosing to and choosing not to check. It's a good argument. Whether it's justified or not, I don't know. We only heard claims, no evidence. So hopefully we can move towards some form of a hybrid model and hopefully continue to develop AI with better methods of detection as well to address the issues of scalability. We definitely do have a ways to go with this, but I think we're on our way to figuring it out, hopefully with time. We'll probably do the community notes things for a while, figure out what is bad with it, and then move to some common ground. You know, let the pendulum swing really far one way, and then come back to that center point. That's probably the path that we're going to take, but as with anything, with change, it takes time. So, thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you are notified when the next video comes out. I appreciate your time and you watching. Have a great night.